312 Jakari warships dropped out of transit and found something waiting for them. High Arbiter Sorventhek of the Jakari Dominion read the sensor data twice. His chromatophores darkened, the species' involuntary sign of unease, and he forced them still before his bridge crew could notice. "Weapons Officer Vron," he said quietly, "what am I looking at?" Vron's tentacles moved across the display. 40 warships, High Arbiter. Unknown configuration. They have been holding position at the edge of the Kellen Reach for 6 standard hours. A pause. They made no attempt to hide. Sorventhek's 8 eyes narrowed. Nothing lived in the Kellen Reach. Nothing had lived here for 3,000 years, since the Dominion had burned a small yellow star's third planet down to slag and called it a precaution. Open a channel. The signal resolved instantly, as if they'd been expected. Admiral Yara Okonkwo of the recovered Earth fleet looked out from the screen. She was dark-skinned, gray-haired, and utterly calm. Behind her, a bridge crew moved with practiced quiet. "High Arbiter Sorventhek," she said. "We've been waiting. My name is Admiral Okonkwo. I represent the people your Dominion tried to erase." The bridge went silent. Sorventhek's skin rippled amber, confusion, calculation. "There are no humans," he said. That matter was resolved. 3,014 years ago, Okonkwo replied. "I know. We counted every day." She looked at something off-screen. "You have 312 ships. We have 40. I want you to understand that before this conversation continues, because I want you to understand what the numbers actually mean." She closed the channel before he could respond. Sorventhek turned to his tactical officer. "Target the human vessels. All batteries." 312 Jakari warships fired simultaneously. The 40 human ships did not move. The barrage struck something, sensors registered impact, but the energy readings were wrong. The beams were not deflecting or absorbing. They were disappearing. 40 human ships sat untouched in a cloud of redirected light. "Report," Sorventhek said, his skin cycling through colors his crew had never seen on a High Arbiter before. Vron's voice was barely controlled. "Their hull material is, we don't have a classification for it, sir. The energy isn't being blocked. It's being harvested. They just absorbed 300 simultaneous full power strikes and their reactor signatures actually increased." Sorventhek opened the channel again. Okonkwo was drinking from a small cup. She looked up. "Are you done?" she asked. "Because I'd like to talk." "What do you want?" Sorventhek demanded. "Justice," she said. "Not revenge. I need you to understand the difference, because by the time this day is over, that distinction will be the only thing standing between your civilization and oblivion." She set the cup down. "We are going to talk about 7 billion people." He stalled. Of course he stalled. He was already transmitting emergency signals to Dominion High Command, requesting reinforcements, buying time while his engineers tried to analyze the human hull composite. Sorventhek had risen to High Arbiter by surviving situations that had killed better commanders. He knew how to read a tactical trap. What he could not read was this. The humans weren't attacking. They weren't issuing ultimatums. Admiral Okonkwo had her historian on the channel now. A tall man with careful eyes who introduced himself as Dr. Emeka Osei, and he was speaking calmly about galactic legal frameworks, about the absence of any codified protection for pre-Dominion species, about a precedent 3 millennia in the making. "We spent 400 years on this document alone," Osei said, holding up a data slab. "The Galactic Extinction Prohibition Accord. 42,000 clauses. We had very good lawyers. We also had a great deal of time." "You have 40 ships," Sorventhek said. "I have 300. "You had 300, Okonkwo said, and her signals officer, young, dark-haired, Ensign Nair, looked up from her console with something that might have been pity. The long-range sensors screamed. 2,400 human warships dropped out of transit simultaneously, emerging from points so precisely calculated that they formed a perfect sphere around the Jakari fleet, one ship every 1.2 degrees of arc, close enough for targeting solutions, far enough to make any breakout attempt a massacre. They were enormous, each one larger than a Dominion destroyer, and they moved with a silence that felt wrong, too controlled, too aware. Sorventhek watched his tactical display turn from green to red in 4 seconds. "High Arbiter," Vron said. The word came out very small. "I see it. Their transit signatures, they exited without decay trails." "That's not possible. Transit always leaves decay trails, it's a physical law." "Apparently," Sorventhek said quietly, "they've had time to rewrite some physical laws." Okonkwo's voice came through the open channel. 2,400 ships. Each one carries a crew trained from birth in 11 disciplines. We don't have soldiers and scientists, we have people who are both, because we couldn't afford the luxury of specialization. Every person on every ship can fly it, fight in it, repair it, and treat casualties at a trauma surgeon's level. She paused. We had 3,000 years and 200,000 people to start with. Do the math. Sorventhek did the math. He wished he hadn't. The reinforcements arrived, 600 additional Dominion warships responding to his emergency signal. They emerged from transit directly into the gaps between human vessels, exactly where the human formation had left holes. Sorventhek felt a brief, hot surge of hope. Ensign Nair said, "From the human bridge, Fleet Marshal Kress, they've entered the net." A voice, deep, unhurried, "Copy, Ensign. Close it." The human ships moved. They moved faster than anything that size had a right to move, repositioning in 11 seconds, sealing every gap in the sphere, leaving the combined Jakari force of 900 ships enclosed in a gravitational snare that Fleet Marshal Davin Kress had apparently been designing for most of his career. Every human weapon was locked. Every line of fire was clean. 900 Dominion warships. 2,400 human vessels with unknown hull composites and weapons that had not yet been fired. Sorventhek had been in command long enough to know when a battle was already decided. "What do you want?" he asked again. His skin had gone pale, the Jakari color of surrender, though he hadn't consciously chosen it. "I already told you," Okonkwo said. "Justice. Not destruction. We are not here to kill 900 ships of people who were given an order before they were born. We are here to end the order." She leaned forward. "But first, and this is not optional, High Arbiter, you are going to bear witness." What followed was not a battle. It was a reckoning. Dr. Osei read aloud from the Record of the Lost, a document humanity had compiled over 3 millennia, updated by every generation, containing the name of every human being alive on Earth on the day the Dominion fired. 7,240,611,408 people. He did not read all of them. He read for 40 minutes, names from every continent, every language, every age, while 900 Jakari warships held still inside a human formation that could destroy them without losing a ship. Sorventhek did not order his crew to cut the audio. He was not sure why. Perhaps because something in him recognized that this was the weight of what had been done, and that looking away from it was the precise failure that had made the Dominion capable of doing it in the first place. When Osei stopped, Admiral Okonkwo spoke. 7 billion people died because you were afraid of what we might become. We want you to see what we became. She let that sit. We became the people who chose not to do to you what you did to us. That is not weakness. That is the only victory that matters. The Jakari Dominion's High Command responded 4 hours later, not with weapons, but with their senior arbiters. All 7 of them, faces ashen, chromatic skin locked in the pale tones of collective shock. They had seen the fleet disposition. They had received Sorventhek's full tactical report. They had run the numbers on human military capacity and found a civilization that had, in 3,000 years of focused isolation, built something that outclassed the Dominion on every measurable axis. They signed the Galactic Extinction Prohibition Accord in the same hour. It was not voluntary, in the sense that nothing signed with 2,000 warships watching is entirely voluntary. But Okonkwo had ensured the document would hold regardless. Built into it was a provision for independent galactic oversight, backed by human enforcement capacity, with teeth that no single Dominion vote could pull. No species could be targeted for extinction. Not for advancing too quickly. Not for being feared. Not for any reason. The Accord defined genocide as the supreme galactic crime, established a tribunal with mandatory human representation, and required the Dominion to fund and construct, on the ruins of old Earth, a monument of black stone 7 kilometers wide. On it, 7,240,611,408 names. Every one of them. Sorventhek stood on the bridge as his ships were permitted to leave one by one, each one scanned, catalogued, and released. He had expected humiliation. He had expected the kind of surgical cruelty the Dominion itself would have practiced in victory, power demonstrated through pain, mercy withheld to make a point. Instead, a human officer had boarded his ship with medical supplies for 2 crew members injured in the transit scramble and fixed them without comment before leaving. He opened a channel to Admiral Okonkwo one last time. He didn't know why. He supposed he owed her at least the acknowledgement. "You had us," he said. "You could have burned every ship." "Yes," Okonkwo said simply. "Why didn't you?" She considered the question as if it deserved real thought. "Because 7 billion people are dead," she said. "And not one of them deserved it. If I burn 900 ships to avenge them, I add more names to the list, and I become the thing that killed them. We decided a long time ago, 3,000 years ago, in 36 ships running for the dark edge of the galaxy, that we would rather be worth remembering than worth fearing." She paused. "Besides, the monument needs to be built. I'd rather you were alive to pay for it." He found he had nothing to say to that. He closed the channel, and the last Jakari ship slipped out of the net, and the 2,400 human warships held their formation until every enemy vessel was safely in transit, not from weakness, not from carelessness, but because they could afford the gesture. Within a day, the signal had reached every inhabited system in the known galaxy. A human fleet existed. It was larger and more advanced than anything the Dominion commanded. It had had the Dominion's forces entirely at its mercy and had chosen law over annihilation. The Galactic Database updated its entry for the Sol system automatically, a bureaucratic reflex from an old Dominion protocol. Someone in the system had a sense of history. The entry read, "Status, returned." Do not mistake mercy for weakness. They will not make the same mistake twice. On the human flagship, Admiral Yara Okonkwo stood alone at the observation window and looked out at the stars, at the specific patch of dark where Earth had been, and thought about 36 ships running scared into the void with 200,000 people and the entire memory of a species packed into their holds. "We made it," she told the 7 billion names she carried in her chest. "We came back. Your names are coming home." The monument would take 11 years to build. She planned to live to see it.